This video is brought to you by my new book, Cryptid and Other Stories of the Bizarre and Terrifying. If you're looking for something to give you some nightmares before bed, then feel free to check out the links in the description. Two games I checked out in the recent past out of curiosity were Gone Home and Tacoma, the titles by the Fullbright Company. Gone Home was a critical darling when it came out, but for one reason or another I never got around to playing it until 2020, when the Epic Store gave it away. Upon playing it and reviewing it, I realized something. I hated it, and found that it had not aged well since other titles had built on what it did and honestly just did it better. Something I made very clear in my original review. Tacoma, on the other hand, I had tried shortly after it came out, and it was one of my earlier videos. I found it to be lacking, but featured some interesting and unique ideas. With the benefit of hindsight and not being entirely satisfied with the previous videos, I decided to revisit both of Fullbright's games. Looking at them back to back, regardless of time apart, highlighted what I've found to be some real strengths behind Fullbright as a studio, as well as their own weaknesses. So with that being said, let's get this Redux review going with their first title, Gone Home.
It's the saddest thing I've ever seen. I just want to sleep.
Released back in 2013, Gone Home sees us in the shoes of Katie Greenbrier, a girl coming home from an overseas trip back in 1995, only to find her house empty and ransacked, with a mysterious note left by her sister apologising for not being there and for something that she had to do. An interesting hook for what could have been a compelling mystery, but instead, what we got was a story that was so hyper-focused on one specific thing, the rest of it is just criminally neglected. The threads that make up Gone Home's story include the house being ransacked, a strained marriage, an urban legend that may be more fact than fiction, and Katie's sister Sam coming of age and realizing that she's gay. The entirety of the voice logs that convey the broad strokes of the story spend their time talking about Sam's coming of age and sexual realization, so it's up to looking out for specific items in the environment to wrap up all of the other plot threads. Ones that really don't come with voice logs, meaning that if you're not eagle-eyed, you can miss the rest of the story, and even then they still feel neglected, since how they're concluded just feel like hand-wave explanations that the writers came up with at the very last minute.
She's usually dressed kind of punk, but sometimes I see her in this, army uniform.
However, other elements of the game do fare a lot better. The house is a character in of itself. As you explore it, the layout starts out very believable. I could even see someone living in a house just like it in real life, but as the game goes on, it reveals it also carries some Spencer Mansion DNA, with hidden entrances and compartments that believably connect different parts to one another. The atmosphere too is sublime and dummy thick. First time I played, the boom of thunder actually got to me and had me on edge at times. Even revisiting for this video, it nearly managed to pull me back in, nearly being the key word there, since the result is an environment that's perfect for a horror experience, and with the urban legend aspect of the game, it does tease some potential horror, which never happens. There is an attempt at a jump scare, but honestly, it's pathetic. Hell, the atmospheric boom of thunder scared me more first time I played this game than the jump scare.
I've known since, She-Ra. Mom and Dad didn't, I guess.
The gameplay hasn't aged well. It was unique and creative for its time, and the game is rightfully considered to be an influential entry in the walking simulator genre. But there is no denying that in the time since it came out, other games have built on what Gone Home has done, and just done it better. Infliction, for example, added its own ideas like stealth mechanics and fail states. It also helped that it told a vastly better, albeit still flawed story of domestic abuse. Because of that, I see Gone Home as being the Final Fantasy VII of walking simulators, in that it was a landmark addition to the genre that came to define much of the style and gameplay conventions, yet has gone on to be surpassed by what has come after it, especially since you just walk around the environment, picking up items, looking at them, and listening to audio logs, something that has become a dime a dozen that no one can deny. Or to use another example, The Vanishing of Ethan Carter used that type of gameplay to introduce interesting and creative puzzles that revolved around the use of psychic powers, whereas Gone Home, it has none of that.
It was so incredible. It put the characters of Has Been Hotel to shame.
As for Fullbright's other game, Tacoma, I cannot say that I enjoyed it either, but it was a vast improvement over Gone Home in a lot of areas. Its story revolves around a technician sent to the Tacoma space station. Her job is to salvage the old station AI and install a new one, as well as uncover the augmented reality logs of the events that led to the crew's evacuation. I will not lie, how the story is told is innovative for this type of game, and even the opening is extremely well done. It managed to pull me into the game from the offset, despite my prior dislike for it, but that doesn't mean the story is good. I found the characters to just be unlikably boring people, whose struggles and concerns I just couldn't bring myself to care about. What's worse is how it's told. Through augmented reality logs, we see what the characters were up to leading to the evacuation. The issue is that they're too few and far apart, so it feels like we're only getting the broad strokes rather than a full meaty story. Back when I first played it, I found the AR log mechanic to be fantastic, and this is still the case. You're free to pause, rewind, or fast forward them as you please, and you need to follow each character individually to get the full story in an area. This even leads to you finding information necessary to access areas that are locked off, as well as to also solve light puzzles if you choose to go after them. There are even incomplete logs you can stumble onto, showing the characters in more personal and private moments. A good chance to showcase who they are beyond their duties within the logs, but unfortunately it's wasted, since these don't really showcase anything of value to the characters, and honestly, the personal quarters decor of each character did a much better job of telling me who they were than these private logs. Outside of the AR logs though, there's nothing else to do other than wander around, pick up stuff and look at it. I will admit, I do think this game would benefit tremendously from VR, especially considering how well realized the environments are. I wouldn't mind getting into the thick of things on the station's pool table or using the administrator's guitar to play Black Sabbath, but when all you're doing outside of listening to recordings is looking at curry packets while waiting for a tablet to finish downloading an AI, it can't help but feel like a literal chore to play. Hence the reason why I did not play this game beyond my first session for this video. I literally found it to be just too boring upon returning to it to play beyond one time for 45 minutes.
There's a reason people for English breakfast, you know.
However, I did notice a few commonalities between both of these games. For one thing, both of them feature well-realized and immersive environments. So if nothing else, Fullbright are masters of environmental design, but they're not good writers. Their stories tend to hyper-focus on one particular narrative thread or theme while ignoring the others, leading to sudden and disappointing twists at the end as they try to wrap everything up in an unsatisfying bow. Spoiler for Tacoma, turns out everyone got off the station okay despite there being an AR log implying that somebody died. They just got on a ship leaving from Earth, hence why they couldn't tell anyone where they were going, and the ship was basically a truck they hitched a ride on. Their games also show that they're willing to innovate with storytelling and gameplay. While I may not like Gone Home's story, there is no denying it was something unique and unheard of at the time of its release in the mainstream consciousness. As far as I'm aware, the only other game like it when it came out was the Dear Esther mod for Half-Life 2. Then there's Tacoma's AR log mechanic, which is a stroke of pure genius and fitting considering the game's far future setting. Despite my dislike for both of their games, I am actually still interested in seeing what Fullbright's next game is like, because I do think they are more than capable of creating something that could appeal beyond their dedicated fanbase. Hell, their leading man, Steve Gaynor, was one of the guys behind Minerva's Den for Bioshock 2. If their next game, Open Roads, can address the problems in the prior titles that I find to be plaguing them, I do believe it can be something great.
Unprecedented. I looked it up. It's never happened before.
Go to Williams.
Well, everything happens once. No, personally, I'm happy for us.
Happy to be
AI aren't like designer.
Alright, thanks for checking out this video, I really do appreciate it. If you guys really liked the video, then by all means hit the like and subscribe buttons. Sorry about the recent content drought from me. I have to be honest, I kinda lost my mojo recently, and I've been dealing with some personal shit that has not exactly been putting me in a very productive mindset lately, but I'm starting to get out of it, and I really do want to focus on getting a ton of personal projects done and dusted, this video being one of them. And for the next game review, I'm planning to take a look at a game that I've been curious about for some time now, Legend of the Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 1. And at some point, I need to get back into movie reviews. Anyway, I got all that and more coming up, so please stick around.